The night was quiet, the kind of small-town silence that stretches between the ticking of an old wall clock and the distant hum of a passing truck. Sarah Miller sat alone in her modest living room, the glow of a single lamp brushing across stacks of case files she hadn't touched in months. Her house stood at the far edge of town, where the streetlights faded into open fields and the wind whispered through the trees. To her neighbors, she was just a quiet woman who kept to herself, polite but distant, always walking with her hood up and her eyes lowered. No one suspected that beneath her calm exterior lay the instincts of a trained FBI agent, one who had seen things that haunted her every night. At 2 a.m., the peace shattered. A heavy kick slammed into her front door, rattling it on its hinges. Then another. A chorus of laughter and drunken voices filled the air, cutting through the stillness. "Hey, lady," one of them shouted. "You think you're too good for the rest of us." Another kick, louder this time, splintered the frame. Sarah's heartbeat didn't race, it steadied. Her training took over before fear could. She moved silently across the room, her bare feet making no sound against the cold wood floor. She reached for the drawer near the kitchen table and pulled out her Glock 19, checking the chamber out of habit. The door burst open, sending wood chips across the floor. 3 young men stumbled inside, faces red with alcohol and bravado. Their laughter echoed as they looked around her small home. "What's this? The ghost lady's house," one mocked. But then one of them stopped laughing. His eyes locked onto the back of a chair near the door, where an FBI tactical jacket hung neatly. The room seemed to freeze. The badge gleamed faintly under the lamplight. Next to it, on the table, lay her open badge case, her gun cleaning kit, and a folder labeled, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Evidence. The air turned heavy. The boys' smiles faltered, replaced by a creeping dread. "Is that real?" one of them whispered. Sarah stepped from the shadows, calm and composed, her gun lowered but visible. "You have 10 seconds, she said quietly. Her voice carried no anger, only certainty. "Out." The bullies stared at her, frozen by the weight of her tone. They stumbled backward, tripping over each other as they fled into the night. The sound of their running footsteps faded down the gravel road until all that remained was the whisper of wind through broken wood. Sarah locked the door, repaired what she could, and sat back down. She didn't call the police. She didn't need to. She knew exactly who they were, and that they would be back. Morning came with a dull gray sky. Sarah poured herself a black coffee, the aroma rising like smoke through the silence. She dressed simply and walked to the local diner, as she did every morning, her expression unreadable. The waitress greeted her with a nervous smile. Whispers had already begun spreading. At the far end of the diner, Tyler, the tall, broad-shouldered leader of the group, sat with his friends, eyes bloodshot, fingers drumming on the table. He couldn't focus on anything. The memory of that FBI jacket haunted him. He tried to laugh it off, telling the others she was probably a fake, maybe bought the stuff online. But deep down, he didn't believe his own words. Something about the way she'd stood there, calm and unafraid, had cut through him. That afternoon, Tyler walked past her house again. The door was fixed, the curtains drawn, no sound came from inside. Still, he felt her presence, like she was watching him even if he couldn't see her. When he passed the general store, an old man sitting on the porch muttered, "That's the Miller woman. Lost her husband in the bureau years ago. They say she used to work undercover." Tyler froze mid-step. Undercover? The word echoed in his head. The more he tried to shake the curiosity, the deeper it dug in. That night, unable to sleep, he searched online for her name. Nothing came up. No records, no photos. It was like she didn't exist. And that made her even more terrifying. Sarah, meanwhile, sat at her kitchen table with the lights off, staring at the badge on the wood surface. The silence of the house pressed against her chest. She thought about the young men who had kicked in her door, how easily their arrogance could have gotten them killed. She wondered how many people in this town would ever understand that the quiet woman among them had once chased monsters for a living. She sipped her coffee, her eyes cold and sharp in the darkness. She didn't fear them, but she knew they'd come again. This time, she'd be ready. The next evening, the sun dipped behind the hills and the streets of the small town fell into a dusky stillness. Tyler couldn't shake the image of the FBI jacket, the weight of guilt pressing harder each hour. His friends joked about it, but their laughter sounded forced, thin. Deep down, they all felt it, the unease of knowing they had crossed a line. But Tyler's curiosity burned brighter than his fear. He needed to know who Sarah Miller really was. That night, with the moon hidden behind a veil of clouds, he walked toward her house again, staying low behind fences and trees. He told himself it was just to apologize, to make sure she wasn't angry. But as he stepped into her backyard and saw the faint light through the window, he knew that wasn't true. Inside, Sarah sat at her desk, sorting through an old folder marked, Case 472. Her face was calm but her eyes were hollow. She had been trying for years to bury that part of herself, but the files she couldn't bring herself to destroy kept her tied to the life she'd left behind. She didn't hear Tyler at first, the soft crunch of his shoes on the grass, the quiet creak of the porch. But when the floorboard groaned under his weight, she reacted instantly. Within seconds, she was behind him, her gun drawn, her voice firm but even. "Turn around." Slowly. Tyler froze, hands raised, fear twisting his stomach. "Please," he said, "I didn't come to hurt you. I needed to know." Sarah studied him in silence, the barrel steady. His eyes were wide and honest, shaking but not lying. She lowered the gun slightly but didn't relax. "You think this is a game?" she asked. "Do you have any idea what could have happened to you last night?" He stammered an apology, words tumbling over each other. After a long pause, Sarah sighed and motioned for him to come inside. He stepped through the door, the same one he and his friends had shattered nights ago, now repaired but scarred. The air smelled of coffee and gun oil. On the table, he saw the files, faces of missing people, official seals, and a faded photograph of a woman standing beside Sarah in tactical gear. Tyler's voice was quiet. "You were really FBI?" She nodded. "I was. Undercover Division, Human Trafficking Task Force. We were closing in on a ring operating across 3 states. My partner was the one who took the bullet that was meant for me." Her voice cracked just slightly, but her expression stayed composed. "After that, I walked away. Too many ghosts." For a moment, silence filled the room. Tyler looked down, ashamed. He realized she wasn't some mysterious recluse, she was a woman running from memories that still bled. "I didn't know," he said softly. "No," she replied, "you didn't care to." She opened the door and pointed toward the road. "Go home, Tyler. And tell your friends, don't come back." He hesitated, guilt clawing at him, then nodded and left. But the peace didn't last. The next night, his friends cornered him outside the bar. They had heard he went to her house again. Their eyes were full of suspicion and wounded pride. "You getting soft on her now?" one sneered. Tyler tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen. The leader of the group, Mason, spat on the ground. "She's just some washed-up cop. You think we're scared of her?" He pulled a crowbar from his truck and smirked. "Let's see how tough she really is." Tyler's stomach sank. He begged them to let it go, but Mason just laughed and drove off with the others into the night. Sarah, sitting inside her darkened home, saw their headlights before she heard the tires on gravel. She exhaled slowly, her eyes narrowing. She had been expecting this. Cameras blinked red in the corners of her porch, small motion sensors armed along the path. As the men approached, whispering and laughing, she moved through the house with quiet precision. When the first window shattered, she was already behind cover. The moment they stepped inside, floodlights snapped on, blinding white. Mason cursed and raised the crowbar, and then froze as a red dot appeared on his chest. "Federal agent," Sarah's voice rang out, calm and commanding. "Drop it." They hesitated just long enough for the sound of sirens to rise in the distance. Tyler's voice shouted from the road, "Stop. Don't move." The bullies turned, realizing too late that they'd been trapped. Within minutes, flashing blue and red lights painted the front of her house. Local police stormed in, but behind them came 2 black SUVs, federal vehicles. Sarah stepped forward, her badge glinting in the light. One of the agents smiled faintly. "Good to have you back, Agent Miller." She didn't answer, just looked at the arrested boys as they were led away, the weight of justice heavy in the night air. Her past had found her again, and this time, she wasn't running.